I had never seen any enemy do this before, aside from in the furnace, and it completely caught me off guard. Dozens of deaths that could have been prevented if I'd known about this one trick from an item that just cost 50 gold. This doesn't always work, but goddamn does it feel good when it does work. I can't tell you how it took me 30 hours of recording to figure this out. Tight spread, cool custom animations, and that is not how you hold a pistol. Spiff, this is my official challenge to you. Second best rifle in all of Fortnite. Oh my gosh, this challenge took so much longer than I had originally anticipated. When I first got the idea for this, I was like, hey, I'll throw this video together in a few weeks and it'll barely make a hiccup in my upload schedule. That was 7 months ago. This was grueling. This was a colossal feat, but I had so much fun with this project, I couldn't possibly fit it all into one video. But Megazard, I hear you ask. What is this video? What is this challenge? And what even is this game? Well, I'm glad I asked. This is Demon Slasher, a game created inside of Fortnite by Clover Games. This game is free, by the way, and you can play it right now by just typing Demon Slasher or this code into the Fortnite search bar. It calls itself a roguelike, but it is not. It's a death run with roguelike elements. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Here's the game. You start with a pistol, and you gotta shoot your way through rooms of enemies. Every elimination gives you a few coins, and when you get eliminated, you get sent back to the very beginning. But you keep all the coins that you earned along the way. You can then use those coins to buy better weapons and make yourself stronger, to make it a little bit farther in the next run, get even more coins, and repeat the cycle. Clover gives you no shortage of weapons to beat this game with. Some you need to buy, others need to earn, and still others you need to gamble your life savings on. I took a look at the arsenal, and I got the idea for a challenge. Is it possible to beat all of Demon Slasher with only one gun? Not just that, but is it possible to beat the game using every gun, one at a time, with minimal upgrades? The answer is no. But you didn't come here for an answer, you came here to watch me try. Before we start, I want to clarify 3 things. First, remember how I said that you're able to upgrade yourself? Well, I didn't want to do that. That felt like cheating. There are 5 upgrades that you can get for yourself in this game. Health, health regeneration, attack damage, movement speed, and instant reload. Previously, I had gotten all of these to their max level, but for this video, I've reset all of them to 0. I did allow myself 1 level of regeneration along with some extra health. This is where the second thing comes into play, heals and items. I wanted some way to use all the heals and items over the course of this video, just so I wouldn't use the same ones over and over again. So I made a spin the wheel thingy for the heals. Every time I do a run, I'll spin the wheel twice, and whatever it lands on, I'll take. Over here we have the utility items, consisting of shields, grenades, shields, and grenades. Very diverse lineup. These have the exact same problem as the heals, and I use the exact same solution, a spin the wheel thingy. So I'll take 2 stacks of heals, 2 stacks of items, all to help with part 3, the weapons. There are 80 weapons available in the shop, with even more available from other sources. And I'll say right now, I will not be using all of them. I know that defeats the point of the video, but hear me out. A ton of these are just the same weapon in different rarities. So for anything that's available in multiple rarities, I'll only be doing a run with the one in the highest rarity available. For example, this rifle is available in rare, epic, and legendary, but for this video, I'll only be doing a run with one of them. Some weapons aren't even available to me. Like these 3 here can only be bought with currencies in a special bonus world. I don't have access to that area, so I cannot use these weapons. I will also be skipping the charged shotgun simply because I do not like it. The weapon is just big and chonky, and it takes up like half the screen while you're aiming, like Badger's forehead.
Why is your fucking forehead taking up half the screen? I can't see the gameplay.
The shots take a while to charge, which adds up quickly over the course of a run, and enemies can duck or move whenever they feel like it, so it's super punishing to miss your shots. This thing is just nothing but a pain. So, you understand the challenge. Grab a weapon, grab some heals and items, and hope for the best, because there's only going to be 1 run per weapon. If I mess it up, too bad, we move on. We're going to start with the basic weapons, and then work our way around to the more powerful and exciting ones. You might think that means that we're starting with this here pistol, but we're actually starting with this one over here, which you unlock just for spawning in. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The starting pistol was rough to go back to. After playing for months with an unmatched arsenal, going back to a simple pistol and a hodgepodge of items was crippling. I made it through Zone 1 without much trouble. I almost reset in Zone 2 and moved on to the first indoor zone. If you're a first-time player, you're probably gonna reset here, but I'm not a first-time player, and I have explosives. Tally-ho, lads! This was the first of many realizations that would reshape how I play the game. Explosives and some other items here can be very useful and powerful. In traditional Battle Royale, where everyone has 200 hit points at most. This was not traditional Battle Royale, and only the weakest enemies have 200 hit points, while some enemies can have several thousand, so Dynamite doing 70 damage simply wasn't very useful. I would go on to die in Zone 4. Okay, not the best start. Let's run it back, with a new pistol and a new set of items. I used a decoy this time, and it seemed to draw enemy fire for a moment, but it wasn't nearly as effective as I was expecting, and I died a whole zone earlier. Maybe I was a first-time player after all. Thunderburst SMG, don't let me down. We got some heals that are actually good, and a shield that I'll probably definitely use when I'm taking heavy fire. I died in Zone 5. A shotgun, come on, surely a shotgun will be able to mop up more enemies, right? Right? Well, actually, yeah. I made it back to Zone 5, cheesing the minigun bosses by just jumping behind them and firing one shot at a time. Don't clown on me for not using the auto fire feature in an auto shotgun. It works, and I cleared the zone. I did skip fighting the Spire though, which is actually fine. These are the only enemies in the game that you don't need to fight to progress. Zone 6 was not nearly as merciful though. If you somehow survive past Zone 4, you will be humbled here. This area features 3 groups of normal enemies with 2 mini-bosses on a podium in the center with scattered haphazard cover. Looking back at this footage, I'm very surprised I made it through here. This area isn't the best for shotguns, especially the enemies in the back. There's only one piece of cover near these enemies, and there's nothing stopping them from just walking around the cover. I somehow cleared the zone, and I moved on to Zone 7 and 8, which are just simple rooms with plenty of cover. These parts are pretty easy. Zone 9 was tough though. There's 2 groups of enemies with a small amount of cover in front of either group. But when you're behind the cover for one group, the other group is able to fire at you. There's also this little pillar, which isn't the best cover, but it somehow got the job done. Once you clear out one group of enemies, the other group is pretty easy, and the minigun boss is harmless no matter what you do here. Zone 10 has the first actual boss fight. Eliminating certain bosses will give you tokens, which you can use to buy special weapons later, and Zone 10 has the first of these bosses. Zone 11 has 4 mini-bosses with infantry rivals. That's pretty easy to deal with, but the hard part is the Spire that's also there. The Spire attacks by shooting an explosive blast at your character, and being directly behind cover will not protect you from the blast. What you want to do is stay just a little bit away from the cover and then you're golden. But of course, if you move back into the blast zone, well, you get blasted. Progress was slow, and I realized the rest of the challenge would have an absurd amount of time just sitting behind cover waiting for a green bar to fill up. I decided to buy some more regen, and this one was a big deal. See, previously it was only my health that was regenerating, not my shield. That's why I needed the health items. But now my shield will regenerate alongside my health, which basically doubles my passive hit points. I wasn't expecting this to be immediately helpful in the next run with the revolver. This thing is slow, it hits decently hard at like 60 damage to the body, but I wasn't excited to spend like 10 seconds reloading after every 6 shots. I didn't know it at the time though, but this run would go on to be one of the most influential runs of the whole video. For one, this run took me almost all the way to the end of the game. 2, this run turned out to be the longest of all of them, clocking in at 1 hour and 40 minutes. And 3, I discovered a little something that would revolutionize runs that make it into the late game. And I'm pretty sure even Clover themselves don't know about this little trick. You haven't actually seen what the whole map is like yet, so allow me to show you around over the course of this run. You've already seen the first few areas. Zones 1 and 2 are like World 1 of a Mario game. Zone 3 has a room of shotgun enemies, and then an immediate hallway of shotgun enemies. I don't like Zone 3. Zone 4 has 2 groups of enemies and a minigun with plenty of cover from everything. I'm still embarrassed that I even died here. Zone 5 is known for having the first Spire, 6 miniguns, and not a ton of obvious cover. Zone 6 was kind of similar. The miniguns were easy pickings from afar, and valiant use of the new regen meant I actually stood half a chance against the grunts here. Zone 7 and 8 are pretty similar and pretty basic. The only notable thing here is that in Zone 7, the audio cue says to push the button on the left to open the door.
Okay, the door looks closed. On my plan, you can press the button on the left to open it.
But that's a trap. You actually want to press the button on the right behind these hanging boxes. Earlier I said that Zone 9 didn't have great cover, and that's true, but there's also this little nugget of cover way back here by the bunker door. The bots can still attack you from back here, but this is the best consistent cover for the whole zone. Zone 10 was a simple right, left, boss. I don't think I'd change that strategy for the entire video. In Zone 11, I took out the mini bosses from afar so the Spire wouldn't bother me, and then I just ran right into the next area. Inside this room was just 2 groups of enemies with some minimalist cover, just like Zone 7 and 8. Zone 12 is more of the same, but with the addition of a minigun. Zone 13 is fun. It's got 2 groups of enemies and 4 mini bosses and a ton of cover that's in their favor, not yours. The only reliable cover you have for this zone is this dinky little plank at the very beginning of the zone, and you can usually pick off everyone just from that cover alone. This zone is more famously known for being where you can buy 2 of the most overpowered weapons in the game, the Mist Gauntlets and the Swarm Strike, but we'll get to those later. Zone 14 has another minigun boss and 2 groups of enemies. They really love using that format, don't they? Zone 15 has a lot. This is what I consider to be the start of the really hard areas, and the first few enemies here do not disappoint. They're tanky, they can laser you in an instant if you're not careful, and they're far more accurate than just about any other enemies. Clear 3 areas of 3 enemies, and you clear the zone. Zone 16 is a frozen lake, with a spire, 2 groups of enemies, and minimalist cover all surrounding the Ice Queen. Let me tell you about the pure brutality that is incarnate in the Ice Queen and her grenade launcher. If she hits hard, but even if she misses, grenades can land behind your cover and still hit you, so you need to wait for your health to regenerate for just long enough to get in 1 or 2 shots and then duck behind cover again, all while still avoiding fire from the 2 groups of normal enemies. I have almost died many times over the course of this video. I have almost died here more than anywhere else. Zone 17 is a giant oven where you attack through the exhaust port in the top. It's got some enemies in this little top area and then some more down below. You can just pick off the top enemies until they fall down, and then you become the top enemy. Just shoot from cover, take out the boss, and move on. Zone 18 features our favorite 2 little zones of enemies and a minigun. Love to see this format back again. Zone 19 has a not frozen lake with another boss fight. This one is significantly easier than the last lake zone. The boss here also just has a stink bow that does damage over time, so watch out for that dart gun. Zone 20 has a few enemies on these here stairs, and then 2 groups of enemies at the bottom, 1 on either side. Also, I learned something new here. You might have noticed this timer at the top of my screen here. This tells you how long you've been on your current run. This was my first run ever reaching an hour in length, and when you reach an hour, the timer just goes away. I would use this as a benchmark for future runs, to see whether or not I could get to Zone 20 in under an hour. I hate everything about Zone 21. It's a big open area with a group of enemies in the middle, no problem. But then there's also enemies on either side with explosive pistols. There's also a guy in the back with a burst, but he's not much of an issue. This area is also pretty neat because it's got low gravity. Head up the top and down the back to get to Zone 22. This one is just 3 areas of enemies in a winding hall, ending with the only melee boss fight in the whole game. I think you're supposed to use like tactics and skill to beat the boss here, but you can also just sit outside his movement area and pick him off from there. Zone 23 gives you a spire, which I didn't feel like fighting, and a few enemies just past the spire. I absolutely should have died here. Then there's a temple with a few more enemies, and then a few more enemies on the other side of the temple. Zone 24 is a laboratory, with a minigun and some grunts outside, and then a decent handful of P90 grunts inside. Zone 25 is a gladiator arena. There's a few grunts outside, and then 2 groups of grunts inside, and an actual minigun boss, not a minigun mini-boss. Zone 26 starts off with a close-up with some pump shotguns. These guys can box you up like Chinese takeout, so be careful. After that, there's a few more grunts across this here pit, and then there's a boss fight at the bottom of the pit. Supposedly, this is the home of Shogun X, but they're not the boss you fight here.
So this is the home of Shogun X. Few know what he really looks like.
Actually, Shogun X isn't in the game at all anymore. He was only here for a limited time boss event that you can't do anymore, despite being front and center on the game's thumbnail. Zone 27 is just a basic hallway with some parkour. Not much more to it. Zone 28? oh boy. Zone 28. Zone 28 is a hedge maze with like 20 enemies and a boss that are all tanky as hell. Despite there being walls everywhere, there is nowhere to truly hide, since I think all the enemies can traverse the whole maze, and I was fully preparing to die here. But, as I was picking off the grunts at the start of the zone, to my complete disbelief, this happened. I had never seen this before, ever. All the enemies just vanished out of thin air. At the time, I didn't fully understand why this happened, but I wasn't ready to turn down the good fortune, so I just rushed past and skipped the entire fight. Zone 29 is another battlefield. This one has a boss, a spire, and like 5 or 6 areas of enemies without a ton of cover. If I didn't die in the previous zone, I was definitely going to die here. The boss is on a floating platform in the middle of the map. She can see over the whole arena, so I couldn't move on to the other enemies until I took care of her first. After that, I just went clockwise around to all the other enemies. The first group was the hardest, because you're really struggling for cover, and almost every other enemy group can attack you. But after you clear out one group of enemies, you can just use their cover as your own. Then just go around, blah blah blah, spend 2 whole minutes shooting the spire. Zone 30 is the last zone before the final boss fight, and I cannot tell you how ruthless it is. It's a big open area with 2 small groups of enemies, but the real problem is the 4 snipers on top of these towers. These guys have insane health bars, and they can beam you out of existence just by looking at you. The hallway has an invisible ceiling, so it's hard to cheese the aiming. You can't run back down the hall because then the snipers will respawn with full health. And you can't even just rush, because then the snipers can fall off their platforms and point blank you with no cover. And this was where my run finally came to a close. And this was just the 4th weapon out of like 50 that I would need to do. The drum gun was next, but I did not use the drum gun over here. Remember how I said that I was only going to use the highest rarity of each weapon? Well, there's a better drum gun. It's over here in the special weapons, and you need a flower to buy it. No, I will not elaborate. Nothing happened in this run, and I die in Zone 5. The Warforged AR has to be one of my favorite rifles in the whole game. Killer speed, killer accuracy, and killer damage. Sometimes I was even able to get 2 eliminations with a single clip. Coming from the revolver and the drum gun, which had the accuracy of a frog, this was a very welcome change. How did I die in Zone 6? The final weapon before we move on to the shop weapons is the Lawless Accelerant AR. This weapon is actually really special. It's not great, but it is special. Basically, if you hold down the trigger for longer, you'll actually shoot faster. Also, this run introduced the baffling concept of attacking from cover and not just running into the battlefield blindly, which you might have noticed I've been doing incredibly often up to this point. And believe it or not, I have good reason. You see, up until making this video, I had been playing as if I was invincible. I had maxed out all my upgrades, so I could just plow through enemies like they were nothing, and I could heal like it was no problem. Cover was just an annoying blockade that was stopping me from killing enemies faster, not something to help protect me. And this run is where that really started to kick in. Well, mostly. You already know how much I hate the Ice Queen and her grenade launcher, and you'll never guess where this run ended. After this run, I decided to buy the instant reload upgrade, since I wasn't excited to spend like a full third of all future runs just reloading every few seconds. I also decided to get rid of the wheels that I used for picking items and heals. My original reason for using these was 1, to not just use the snow cones for heals every run, and 2, I wanted to experiment with all the utility items available. But that was before I knew just how bad most of the items were, like how you can only hold 2 grenades in a stack when they do 5 damage. I retired the wheels, and I would not use them for the rest of the runs. The first run after getting instant reload could not have been a better pick. The Gatekeeper shotgun hits hard and fast, but you only get 3 shots and then you have to reload. But of course, I don't need to reload anymore. So I just hit hard and fast, and then hard and fast again. Fun fact, this was actually my shotgun of choice for a very long time. It's also upgradable, but even in its most default form, it can easily tear through just about anything. I was feeling so close to invincible this run that I forgot that I wasn't, and I died in Zone 5 again. Why do the most embarrassing deaths always happen in Zone 5? The combat shotgun went a lot better. It functions surprisingly similar to the Gatekeeper, but just with a tighter spread and larger capacity. I went back to the platform cheese for Zone 5. I wasn't excited for 2 embarrassing deaths in a row. Zone 6 went about as well as it could have for a shotgun, but the last group in the back would be a problem, since there's pretty much no cover to duck behind. I had a porta cover this time, and I thought that I could just shoot from behind that. So I threw it down, and it was quiet. I poked my head out, and it was quiet. Oh my god. You're invisible to enemies when you're behind porta cover. As long as you stay behind the cover, they just won't attack you at all. I cannot tell you just how revolutionary this was in the moment. Dozens of deaths that could have been prevented if I'd known about this one trick from an item that just cost 50 gold. I wouldn't need it all the time, some zones already give you plenty of cover, but Zone 9 would benefit a ton from this. I could pick off everyone from so much closer now, instead of ducking behind those 2 pieces of crappy cover. The next few zones were a blur as I speedran my way to the Ice Queen, only to discover that you can't put porta cover on ice, and I died immediately. The Stinger SMG was up to bat, doing what it does best, hitting shots when it feels like it. I used a porta cover in Zone 9, and I still just wasn't used to it. It almost feels like cheating, like it's just so much easier to play the game when you can just put down cover wherever you want. I almost died in Zone 11. These mini-bosses have infantry rifles, which are best at hitting their shots all the time. The most exciting part about this run was using an unstable grenade in Zone 12, less so because it was useful and more just because it was fun. I died to impatience in Zone 15. Nothing happened on the P90 run. I died in Zone 13 because I used Zeus's lightning for the first time, and I didn't realize it turns you into a sitting duck. The Hyper SMG was a pretty boring weapon, I'll be honest. The firing rate is unbeatable, don't get me wrong, but it only does like 10 damage per hit, and combined with the mediocre spread and accuracy, this one just wasn't fun to use. It probably didn't help that the weapon itself looks like a toy from the dollar store. It did have range at least, so picking off guys from afar was never an issue, but it was still a chore. I did get this new idea for Zone 9 though. Enemies never attack you immediately upon entering a new zone. They always wait a few seconds. So, what if you just ran past everyone and blasted them from behind? And to my surprise, it actually worked. The minigunner just stood there like a child about to get crushed by a CRT, and the normal enemies had basically no cover to hide behind from the back. Then I destroyed the cover so I couldn't cheat and use it in the next run. Zone 11 was a pain. Again. I don't know why I keep mentioning that. It's almost like I'm building up to some kind of big reveal. I finally made it back to the Ice Queen, eager to show her a piece of my mind. I got as close as I dared, I was sure to stay off the ice this time, and I threw down a porta cover. To absolutely no change from the enemies. I panicked and threw down another, but nothing changed. I made a last-ditch effort to run, but it was too late. I felt so betrayed in this moment. I thought for sure the porta cover would just be a win tool. I had no idea it simply wouldn't work sometimes. I had so many ideas on how to use this in future zones, but now all of that was being called into question. Infantry rifle! Woo! I had a lot of fun with this one. The infantry rifle could easily be a definitive weapon for slower playstyles of demon slashers. Unmatched accuracy, great damage, and it's simply a fun weapon to use. My only real complaint with this run is needing to hear the firing sound for as long as I did. Like, it sounds like nails on a chalkboard. I was also surprised to learn, in Zone 6, that only some enemies in some zones are immune to porta bunkers. I attacked these guys in the combat shotgun run, and they didn't attack me from behind cover. But one guy is now. Maybe it's a perspective thing. I don't know. I've never properly followed up on this. In Zone 16, I tried picking off the Ice Queen from afar, so the other enemies wouldn't attack me, but I wasn't afar enough. I tried to boogie bomb one group of enemies, and it actually worked. For that group, and not for the Queen herself. I had to move, because the Spire could respawn at any time, so I took refuge on the left side of the arena. I had to try the porta cover one more time. It was calling to me, like the Green Goblin mask. So I gave it another try, and the exact same thing happened, solidifying that the only cover I'd have for this zone would be the cover that came with the zone. You're probably expecting me to say that I died here, but no, I actually died in the very next room, the oven. It was barely even my fault. I just slipped and fell, and they were upon me like the seagulls from Finding Nemo. In a last-ditch effort, I threw down a porta-cover, and it worked for a fleeting second before they just walked behind the cover and sent me back to the lobby. The Striker Burst was even more fun, ripping through the early enemies like they were paper. The mini-boss in Zone 4 got kinda lost, which I thought was funny. This thing has a scope and fires 2 bullets in succession, so headshots are far easier and more bountiful. Actually, accurate shots are more bountiful in general. In Zone 13, I learned that porta-cover could break the game. Literally, it can destroy plants if you throw them correctly. This weapon is so much easier to listen to than the infantry rifle. And for as great as the hipfire is with this weapon, it got completely overshadowed by just having bullets go exactly where I tell them to. Tore through the Ice Queen in record time. Explosive boys in Zone 21 were no problem. Oh, okay, maybe a little. The next few zones just kinda happened. Nothing exciting to report until Zone 28. The Hedge Maze, where I was flabbergasted so long ago with a revolver run. I hadn't been back here since, and I was excited to try this again. And to my surprise, it worked. Just like the first time. It was the ultimate cheese, on what I consider to be one of the hardest zones in the whole game. It was reliable, it was consistent, and it was easy. Spiff couldn't have found something better himself. Zone 30. I'm here to meet my best run of the challenge so far. Here's what the strategy came down to. Find a spot where only one boss can see you at a time. I had been doing this in previous runs, but it's hard to find an exact spot to do this in. After that, just clean up these 2 groups on either side and clear the zone. And finally, the only thing left is the boss fight at the top of the endless staircase. And I'll be honest,
this boss fight is too easy.
It's split into 2 sections. In part 1, you need to attack a giant lock in the middle of the arena while fighting off a horde of zombies. Or just run away from the zombies, that works too. Part 2 is more devious. There's 2 masks with enormous health bars that you need to shoot, while different events play on the arena. There is a 3rd mask, but it doesn't do anything. There are 6 events that can occur in the arena during this part of the fight. Radical Beam, Demon Rise, Spike Line, Pillars of Pain, Impale Burst, and Surge. As long as you have basic regeneration, 5 of these are completely harmless because 5 of them are not Demon Rise. Okay, Spike Line can be dangerous if you get stuck on it, but most of the time, you'll be fine. I didn't actually get the Demon Rise event this run, which was great, but I did get the first finished run of the video. 8 hours into recording.
With the 0-point shard, we can protect everything. Now I can use its power. So you're forcing me to do it the hard way. We need this power. It's ours.
God, it's so good. After a stomp victory like that, I was not excited for what was next. The bolt-action sniper, and everything that comes with being a sniper. Big damage, big scope, and reload times that are a nuisance at best. Even with instant reload, it's still a full 2/3 of a second between shots, which adds up over the course of a run. The only exciting things about this run were that I learned the hard way that enemies respawn if you walk too far back into the beginning of the zone. Truth be told, I had discovered this previously, but I didn't fully realize it until now. In Zone 15, I learned that the first group of 3 enemies cannot see you behind porta cover, but the second group of 3 can. Also, this run solidified the loadout that I would be using for the rest of my runs. A Guardian Shield, porta covers, 6 no cones, and a Chug Jug. I died in Zone 17, and honestly, I don't think this was necessary. The hunting rifle was pretty forgettable. It's just a worse bolt-action sniper. I made it significantly farther, but still died in the same way as the bolt-action. The Monarch pistol was significantly more enjoyable. Of course, it doesn't have quite the same bang as the sniper, but it still packs a mean punch. It's one of the best pistols in the game. I say one of the best because, well, we'll get to that later. By the way, do you remember the cover problem from Zone 9? Well, Zone 25 has almost the exact same problem. There's plenty of cover, but none of it is definitive. All the cover will shield you from one group of enemies, but not the other. The best thing I'd found so far was these 2 pieces of cover here, which protect you from both sides, but not when you're pressed against either one. You need to be in a small dead zone away from the cover, which just feels awkward. I had fun choosing the hedge maze again, and cleaned up Zone 29. Remember the boss for this area is on a floating platform? Well, you can actually get on top of it with some parkour, so after cleaning up the enemies, I killed the spire from the boss's platform. I then made it to the boss fight for the second time of this challenge, and this one actually got the Demon Rise event. It spawns 4 Hulk enemies that have Juggernaut health bars, and I swear these guys used to be a lot harder. My memory was that they just stuck around until they were eliminated, and you need to eliminate them because they do not leave you alone and they hit for like 40 damage. But it turns out they just despawn when the next event occurs. You can also just keep walking forward and they'll never stand still for long enough to attack. Roll credits, game easy. The next like 8 weapons were a bit of a blur. They all had their highlights, they were good runs, but I'll just condense them here so we can move on to the fancy weapons. The Striker AR was the first rifle I used since the Striker Burst from earlier. In Zone 26, I died to a cat with a shotgun. MK7. I found a secret passage in Zone 27, but I couldn't get to it on my own. After this run finished, I went back there with an alt account and found a secret page in the secret room. You might have noticed these things laying around earlier. There is a story and plot that ties them all together, but that's outside the scope of this video. Anyway, I made it to the boss in under an hour and beat the game. Best AR in all of Fortnite. The Nemesis AR was next, and it was going great. I didn't actually die on this run, but I didn't finish it either. I was looking for secrets in Zone 25, and I accidentally fell down a hole with no way out, and I had to reset. It sucked, but I did this to myself, and it counts as a loss. I died with the Furi AR in Zone 11, but it was okay because I wasn't actually supposed to use that one, so it doesn't count. More on that later. The janitor went pretty rough. You already know that shotguns aren't this map's specialty, and the tac was no exception. When it worked great, but most of the time, it simply didn't work great. I got lasered in Zone 18 when my porta cover wasn't going to make it. The Frenzy Auto Shotty was not any better. This thing is already a noob weapon in Battle Royale, with a widespread, rapid fire, and individual shots just don't do the type of damage that you need. It feels like the buckshot is just getting farted out. I finally died in Zone 17 because, well, remember earlier when I said that porta cover worked in that area? Well, turns out I was wrong. Pump and dump. I'm gonna be honest, this was some of the most fun I'd had since the Striker Burst. The pump and dump is an SMG and a shotgun, which doesn't seem like it would be a great combination for this until you realize, 1, shotguns are not great primaries here, you know that, but as a secondary, they can be devastating. 2, you know that thing where your screen and crosshairs shake a little bit when you take a shot?
Recoil. The word is recoil. Why didn't I just say recoil?
Yeah, the SMG here doesn't do that, like at all. In Zone 11, I learned to line myself up against this rock on the ground, so neither the Spire nor the mini-bosses can attack you, but you can still attack them. I was feeling so good about this run that I actually fought the hedge maze the intended way. I almost died, but it somehow worked out, and I beat the game. Explosive Rifle. As long as you don't catch yourself in your own blast radius, this is a top tier weapon. Beat the game again. Falcon Sniper was going great until my game decided to just boot me out for no reason, so I cheated a little bit to get back to where I was, and somehow went on to beat the game. And that was the end of the standard weapons. Now we can move on to the ones that are actually fun. The Eradicator Hop Rock Fury Assault Rifle was the first of the exotic weapons on the lineup. Every exotic weapon has some kind of special quirk, and I really like this one. When you hit an opponent, you get low gravity for a few seconds, and you can jump way higher than usual. In Zone 12, I tried the thing where I rushed the enemies and attacked them from behind, but I guess I was a little too close to the minigunner, and do you know what he did? He pulled out his pickaxe on me and started breaking my cover. I had never seen any enemy do this before, aside from in the furnace, and it completely caught me off guard. I died on Zone 15 after getting lasered again. Why does that keep happening on perfectly good runs? The pump shotgun has an exotic variant here. Actually, there's 2. They're called Double and Trouble. Usually if you fire a shotgun, there's a cooldown if you immediately swap to another shotgun, to prevent people from rapid firing something that's not supposed to be rapid fire. Double and Trouble's exotic trait is simply that they remove that restriction, letting you fire much faster than what shotguns are supposed to be balanced for. Of course, these being 2 separate weapons means they take 2 separate inventory slots, so I had to choose something to get rid of from my inventory, and I didn't want to make that decision. So I made a wheel to spin. I wish I was joking. So we just give this sucker a spin and... oh no. Oh no. This run wasn't all too bad, actually. Sure, it wasn't great being restricted to not having any portable cover, and I probably got arthritis from flicking the scroll wheel back and forth so much. But just having shotguns that hit this hard, this fast, was a relief. Yeah, some areas were still a pain. Looking at you, Ice Queen. But I still made it much farther than I expected. I finally died in Zone 21 because these explosive motherfathers just don't miss. The Eradicator Shadow Precision SMG hits way harder and way faster. It pings enemies, so you can see where they are for a few seconds after you hit them. You know the Shadow Tracker is Noah's favorite gun of all time? This is just that, but better. I beat the game. The Wrecker Revolver is the only exotic in this section without a standard counterpart available in Demon Slasher, but you'll probably only need one or the other. This thing is a pistol that uses shotgun ammo, and it is devastating at any range, and I mean any range. By the way, you want to know what this thing's exotic gimmick is? Any guesses? It's extra headshot damage. Like, great, because it wasn't powerful enough already. I beat the hedge maze with this thing, and then I beat the game.
With the 0-point shard, we can protect everything.
Boss weapons. I mentioned this briefly before, but whenever you kill certain bosses, they give you a token. This is where you can spend those tokens. Sometimes bosses drop tokens for their own weapons, like the Typhoon Blade or the Ice Queen's grenade launcher, but they're not all like that. The first boss just has a Barb, but she drops a token for a rocket launcher. Speaking of which, this here rocket launcher has its own special quirk that hasn't been in any other weapon before or since. Enemies can tell when a rocket is coming, and they'll move out of the way. No other weapon has this characteristic, and I just thought it was funny. This run went great until I got to the hedge maze. I was feeling good after the last game, and I was ready to wipe out everyone here, and I blew myself up. The grenade launcher was next. This thing is explosive, and every single hit does 77 damage. In the frozen lake, I wanted to take out the Spire before I took out the Ice Queen. So I got up close, and I threw down a portacover, and I discovered that they don't take Spire damage at all. You can sit right next to it and you'll be completely fine. This was another massive revelation that I wish I could put into words just how important it felt in the moment. Finally taking out the Ice Queen with her own weapon was a lot more satisfying than it should have been. I would go on to beat the game in a record time so far, 49 minutes. For as great as the grenade launcher was, I found the boom bolt to be even more satisfying. It encourages precise shots and then rewards you with extra explosive damage. This one is a top tier weapon for me. It might not be the fastest, it might not be the best, but damn is it fun. I made it all the way to zone 30 and then I died right before the boss fight. The Huntress DMR might be one of the best weapons for sharpshooting ever put in the game. It's got the firing speed and the magazine of a DMR, but the scope and damage of a sniper, making it an amazing choice for almost every zone. Headshots are no problem with this, and even if you miss, body shots still do 75 damage, and you don't need to wait 3 years to shoot again like the scope would have you think. I beat the game. Next up was the Typhoon Blade, and I am confident in saying this is one of the only weapons available that is actually impossible to beat the game exclusively with, and it's got nothing to do with this being a melee weapon, it's because of the durability on the weapon. I died in zone 3 and I wanted to try again just to see what would happen if I deplete the weapon's durability completely, and sure enough, when you use up the durability, the sword is just gone, it vanishes. It is impossible to beat Demon Slashers with only the Typhoon Blade as your weapon. Spiff, this is my official challenge to you. Find a way to cheese the Typhoon Blade in this game, please. The last of the boss weapons was Sky's Assault Rifle, and, well, not sure what I expected from what's the very best version of what's traditionally one of the best weapons in all of Fortnite, but I cleaned out the whole map. Who would have thought one of the most expensive weapons available would be good? The minigun was the last weapon in this little section. Technically there's a few others here, but we already did the drum gun, and you know why I skipped the other 3 weapons here. The minigun was still fun though. Ported cover was kinda useless. The minigun fires from much lower than most other weapons do in this game. So when you fire from behind ported cover, it's really easy to just shoot the cover and destroy it. In zone 17, I hit this posture that I thought was pretty cool. I can't show it to you from a better angle since replay mode breaks in this mode as soon as enemies start spawning in zone 1. But I did make this recreation because this detail was important to me and I didn't want to have it go to waste. Also, instant reload just doesn't do anything to the minigun. I was hoping it would be like the OG minigun, where just as long as you have bullets, you'll just keep continuously firing with no cooldown. This is not that. The cooldown isn't technically a reload, so instant reload doesn't do anything to it. I died in zone 21. And that is the last thing before the secret weapons. But first, there's one more member of the arsenal that you should meet. It's neither a secret weapon nor a special weapon. It's the rarest weapon in the whole game and is the sole motivation behind making this entire video. I am of course referring to the Zapatron. In case you don't know, the Zapatron is a weapon that's garnered a near godlike status over the years. Literally, it was only available for 1 hour in September of 2017, when the Battle Royale game mode first came out. The Zapatron had its own unique ammunition, it could destroy builds, it was a titan among men. Epic removed the Zapatron from Fortnite and never spoke about it again. Until 8 years later, when the Zapatron returned with OG, it was implemented into Creative as well. So creators could add the Zapatron into their own custom islands, which is why it is here in this video with us today. Now, the reason I say this is neither a special weapon nor a secret weapon is because the only way to get it is through this, the Lucky Box. Basically, it's a slot machine with the Zapatron as one of the listed prizes. I've put over 300,000 coins into the Lucky Box. That's over 450 pulls, with no luck. I couldn't finish the video without a Zapatron, not when I had already come so far. So I did the only thing that I could think of. I contacted Clover Games directly. I told them about my project, and I asked if there was anything they could do to help me secure a Zapatron, and they said no. I'm kidding, they said yes. And not just that, they actually updated the game just for me to add a secret code to a panel for me to get a Zapatron. Generously, they even gave me permission to share the blessing with anyone who happens to recognize me in game. So if you ever see me, and if you type subscribe to Megazard in game chat, I will give you a Zapatron. You don't even need to subscribe, just put it in the game chat. I'll be playing this map every day for the next 30 days after this video goes live, so change your server to NA West, boot up, and you might see me. This will be available for as long as the secret code is in the game, and I don't think the map is going to get updated again, so it shouldn't get taken down. Clover Games, if you're seeing this, thank you. This video would not have been the same without your help. With all that being said, it's time to zap some butt. And oh boy, this weapon fucking sucks in this game. Yes, the Zapatron does massive damage to other players in Battle Royale in 2017. This used to be a big deal, but today it's pretty bad. 150 damage to the body, 375 to the head, which sure would have more than domed somebody in 2017. But as a god tier weapon, you're really getting more out of the sizzle than you're getting from the steak with this one. On that note, firing time. That 150 damage I mentioned is from a charged shot. A basic uncharged shot does 50 damage. That's less than a revolver. The weapon itself is big and chunky, so it takes up like half the screen while you're aiming. The charge shots take almost 3 whole seconds to build, which adds up quickly, especially when enemies can duck or move whenever they feel like it. So it's super punishing to miss your shots. Wait a minute!
The weapon is just big and chunky, and it takes up like half the screen while you're aiming, like Badger's forehead. The shots take a while to charge, which adds up quickly over the course of a run, and enemies can duck or move whenever they feel like it, so it's super punishing to miss your shots. This thing is just nothing but a pain.
Oh my gosh, I've idolized the very thing that I hated so badly. It was just served up a different way. I guess I shouldn't be hating too much. The Zapatron isn't super great, but there is one thing it can call its own. Yeah, the Zapatron can one-shot spires, making it an incredible secondary for taking them out quick. I haven't heard anyone talk about how the Zapatron can take out a spire in a single hit. It also does extra damage to everything in the final boss fight, so I have a hunch this was a deliberate choice added by Clover. Hey, it's me from the future. So it turns out the Zapatron does extra damage to structures, and the spires count as a structure, which is why the Zapatron does more damage to them, as well as some of the stuff in the boss fight. Oh, also, I beat the game with the Zapatron. GG. The unstable Thunderclap DMR might just be one of the most enjoyable weapons from the whole video, second only to the Pump and Dump. The scope on this is the perfect size and zoom for just about every fight, and the exotic gimmick for bolts to occasionally explode on impact could not have been done on a better weapon. They don't explode every time, but they do explode just enough for it to feel like a fun bonus reward, which I think is great. I would go on to beat the game with the Thunderclap. The next weapon is easily the most overpowered weapon in the whole game, the Mist Gauntlets. With these, aiming is completely optional. You can just hold down the trigger button in whatever general direction you want, and anything breathing over there will be gone in seconds. Sure, the range isn't great, it's worse than most shotguns actually, but the widespread and the ability to consistently clear out whole rooms at once more than makes up for it. This is an incredible weapon. How did I mess up this run? Zone 9. I didn't have range to attack from the bunker, so I ran past all the enemies and attacked them from there. Okay, I wrote a whole spiel for this part, but that writing was really cringe, so here's what happened. Basically, the Mist Gauntlet's attack overlaps with the porta cover, and since that is destructible, then when you use the gauntlets behind the porta cover, the cover breaks. I didn't have the presence of mind to use my shield while playing, nor the presence of mind while writing to notice how god-awful this part of the script was. In this moment, I wasn't just flabbergasted, I was scared. This strategy had worked flawlessly every other time I tried it, and now for that to get ripped away from me on this run of all runs was a daunting feeling. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled program. Unstable Frostfire Shotgun. This one's gimmick is that every successful shot will either speed up yourself for a few seconds, or it slows down the movement of whatever opponent you hit. Also, remember how I died with the Mist Gauntlets? That was like 10 seconds ago, I really hope you do. Well, I got an even better strategy for Zone 9. Run to the front right cover and throw down a porta cover to your left. And that's it. Now, nobody can see you behind cover, and you already know that in this zone, once you clear out one side, the other side is no problem. I can't tell you how it took me 30 hours of recording to figure this out. I made it all the way to Zone 21 and cleaned out everyone except for the bar and the explosive pistols.
I'm back from the future, Marty. There was another cringy part of the video where there wasn't enough B-roll for me to talk over. We need you to summarize things for the audience retention.
Alright, so you might have noticed that this zone isn't exactly my favorite, especially for close range weapons like shotguns. The enemies in the back are just too much to deal with at short range. My plan for the bar and the explosive pistols was to just use the Guardian Shield to block myself off from two of them, and then take out one boss at a time. This plan did not work, but the foundations of the plan were made. So next time, if I actually use my heals, it might just work a little better. The Unstable Yoink Shotgun is pretty fun. It'll occasionally pull enemies towards you. This run was okay. In Zone 15, one of the enemies fell off the ridge, and instead of risking myself falling off, I went back into the previous zone to have them all respawn. And then it happened again. I would then go on to beat the game. No, I didn't. I died to the Ice Queen. Motherfucker. Kill switch revolvers were so good. Their claim to fame is that if you double jump, it looks like time slows down and you can hit some matrix shots. I tried this in Zone 1 just to say that I did it, but after that I figured it was best to not jump out from behind cover because, well, you know. It's okay though, because even without the bullet time, these things are insane. A single click with this can do 180 damage. It's got great speed, tight spread, cool custom animations, and that is not how you hold a pistol. I died to the Ice Queen, shocker, but I would argue that this one is the least fair death that she dealt out to me. I was fully behind cover for a full second and a half when a grenade comes flying past me and obliterates the rest of my health. Did I mention I don't like the Ice Queen? It's fine. Whatever, we're in the final stretch now. Just 4 more weapons to go, and the Spire Rifle is up to bat. This thing is really neat. It shoots and feels the way it looks, it's got a tight spread, and an enormous 50-round magazine, making it the second largest magazine in all of Demon Slasher. It's also the very first secret weapon available. It's in Zone 5, right behind the big tree. Sure, it's a bit pricey at 700 doubloons, but if you don't have the instant reload upgrade yet, this is an amazing choice, because you're probably only going to need to reload like once per zone. This run was going great. Until it wasn't, and I had to reset in Zone 15. Ever since I got it, the Swarm Strike has been a cornerstone of my arsenal. It's like the Mist Gauntlets, but they can actually hit stuff from afar when they feel like it. But at this point, this was just another explosive weapon. Don't catch yourself in your own blast radius, blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. I finally died in Zone 29. You see, the way that the Swarm Strike works is that it shoots 7 little pin missiles that deal some big DPS when they all hit, but if only one of the missiles hits, it barely does anything. So, with the boss in Zone 29 being on a floating platform above me, with no wall behind her for the blast to hit, and she's moving, I wasn't ready to sit there and just hope I hit her for like 10 minutes. So instead, I tried playing like a hero, and I died like one. The Bug Blaster was a goofy one. This thing has a charge attack that does a flat 100 damage, but it's splash damage, so you can easily take out multiple opponents with a single shot. For as much as I've been hating on charge attacks, this one was actually pretty fun. I made it deep into this run until, actually, that's not true. I was in Zone 2, the run had barely begun, and the blaster just stopped firing. I was confused, so I tried dropping it and picking it up again. 0 shots? Yeah, this thing only has 40 shots, and then it's just a paperweight. So with no second choice, I pickaxed the last 2 guys in this zone, and then got torn apart in Zone 3. And finally, it was time for the Lead Spitter 3000. Every run had been building up to this moment. Every tactic, every strategy, even my inventory had been refined to a science. Now, with one of the highest traffic weapons ever put into the game, I was ready to tear it apart. Ice Queen, annihilated. Explosive pistols, annihilated. Even the spires kneeled before me and my whatever the hell this is. The only thing standing between me and victory was the hedge maze. And I got ripped apart here. It was humbling, but that's how the game was designed to be played, and I had fallen. But that was the last weapon of the challenge. And so, we now have our official list of the weapons that can be exclusively used to beat Demon Slasher completely. Thank you for watching. And really, when I stopped recording, I was going to end it there. I was fully planning to conclude that my findings were definitive and absolute, but as I was writing the script and going through my older footage, I began to realize something. I was getting better at the game. The first few matches of this challenge did not end early because of the weapon's fault, they ended early because of my faults as a player. Remember, many of these runs were made just hours after I was tearing through enemies like a god. I had the wrong mindset, I was confused, I was a lost little idiot who even forgot what his cover was there for. Today, that bumbling idiot is gone. Today, I know how the enemies attack. I know how to defend against them. I even know how to completely cheese them. I could annihilate them with those little starter weapons. So did I stop there? No. I went back through the trenches of the earlier weapons to give them a second chance. And this time, I went in reverse order, starting at the strongest and working my way down to the weakest. I wasn't going to redo every weapon I failed with, just some of the ones that I felt were the least deserved. For example, the P90 death could have happened on any run. I started my selection with the missed gauntlets. Sure, you could argue that this death was well deserved, and you'd be right, but I had spent too much time gassing up the gauntlets, and I couldn't bear to have that all go to waste on such a pathetic death. This run did not disappoint. The new strategy for Zone 9 helped me take care of both sides of those enemies without any issue. Also, remember that funny little rock that I was lining myself up with in Zone 11? Well, it turns out that only shows up depending on your render distance setting. Why, it's right there. Why does it matter how far I can see? It turns out that didn't even matter, since the gauntlets didn't have the range to even get the guys in this zone. It was a lot easier to just flank them on both sides and move on. In Zone 17, I fell off the top panel again, but this time it was okay. The next few zones were all pretty standard, nothing you haven't seen before, but then we find ourselves back at Zone 21, the place where no short-range weapon has made it past. In case you forgot, this zone has a horde of enemies in the middle, easy pickings. But then there's also a bar mini-boss in the back, and 2 mini-bosses with explosive weapons. There's also nowhere to hide from all 3 bosses, except for the rocks at the very start of the zone. When the explosives hit, they hit hard. And even if they miss, the blast can still be devastating. I did not want to lose another close-range run to this zone, so I sat here for whole minutes, formulating a plan. You've already seen this before, but here it is. I'm gonna jump this guy on the left and throw down my guardian shield behind me, protecting me from the other 2 bosses. It's gonna run out of charge, so I have to be quick. All I have to do is hit him hard and fast. Use snow cones whenever my health goes below half, and stay in the air. Usually, if these enemies miss, their explosive shots will hit the ground and still deal damage to you. But if you're in the air, that'll never happen. I checked it frame by frame, and it looks like I got hit in the back just a moment before the final explosive shot hit. So my shield likely just ran out of charge, and it gave the Barb boss an opening. It's really too bad. This fight is so far into the game, it's not easy to experiment with new strategies. If only there was some kind of cheat that we could use on this zone in particular. Infantry rifle. On the first run, the most exciting part was the ending. And for this run, you can say the same. Nothing happened, and I beat the game. Nemesis AR is perfectly fine, and it's a shame I had to go back to this at all, just because of a little oopsie from earlier. This gun is really neat though. On its own, it's pretty basic. It's got good handling, low spread, all that good stuff. I don't see how this could be your favorite AR or your least favorite. But this isn't just a Nemesis AR, this is a modular Nemesis AR, which means if you wanted to, you could add different scopes, you could add different magazines, and some other stuff. So even if it's not your favorite AR, you could turn it into your favorite. Actually, there's a ton of weapons in Demon Slasher that are modular just like this, and one of the rules I made for myself was that all modular weapons need to be in their base, unmodified form. I forgot to say that while I was laying out the rules, and it ultimately didn't matter, but now you get to know. I beat the game. The P90 is in the same club as the Nemesis AR. It didn't have a bad run, it just had a really unlucky ending. This run was way better than the first one, and I had a lot of fun with it. I'll take the time here to show you all the updated techniques that I've been using in certain areas. In Zone 7, after you clear out the enemies on the left, you want to use the basket in the middle to clear out the enemies on the right. Sometimes enemies can walk behind the table on the right and then fire from behind, making that cover useless. In Zone 13, the most consistent method I found was to just run past all the enemies until you get to the room where you buy the mist gauntlets. From there, just attack the enemies in reverse order, starting with the indoor grunts, the first two bosses, then the outdoor grunts, and then the top level bosses. It sounds weird, but it just works. In Zone 15, do almost the exact same thing, but with a porticover. Just be sure to have the porticover right next to the provided cover, because if they're too far apart, not only can the enemies still attack you, but they can even use their pickaxes to get closer. Zone 16, I took care of the frozen drifts and then just rushed the Ice Queen. This doesn't always work, but goddamn does it feel good when it does work. Zone 18. For a while, I was using these two pieces of cover. The close one doesn't give you a consistent clear shot of anybody, and the second one puts you in the firing zone of the right side of enemies. The best cover for Zone 18 is the bamboo wall on the left, giving you better visibility and cover from both sides of enemies. In Zone 23, you don't actually need to hide or crouch from the spire here. Remember, spires don't attack your body, they attack your feet. And this spire has his eye level below where you're standing, so as long as you don't get super close, even if he's attacking you, he'll never hit you. In Zone 24, just do the right side and then the left. If you do the left side first, then the left enemies and the right enemies will be able to both attack you at the same time, which you don't want to deal with. In Zone 25, I did find some definitive cover. It's in this corner, right over here on the right. Just park yourself there, pick off the enemies from afar, and then you can take out the guys on the right easily. In Zone 29, I had been hiding on this ridge on the left, while the first group of enemies took cover behind the rock. I realized I had never seen any enemies on the close side of that rock, so I tried using it for my own cover, and it worked. All this time. 37 hours into recording, and I just learned that was usable cover. I was so sure that I had seen everything. What am I gonna find out after another 37 hours? Zone 30. These little torch pillars give you all the cover you need for taking out the tower snipers. Make sure that you're perfectly behind their cover though, because if you're just a little bit to the left or right, you become a target. Then you just be patient, move around once the first two snipers get taken out, and from there, there's nothing new. The Warforged AR went great. I'm not sure what I expected from a gun literally owned by Ares, the god of war. And don't tell anyone, but this and the mist gauntlets were almost the entire reason I wanted to go back and redo some of the earlier weapons at all. Neither of these masterpieces deserve the disrespectful ends they got. I beat the game. Second best rifle in all of Fortnite. I still didn't like the drum gun. It shoots like an SMG, but just with a slower firing rate, and it feels like you're shooting out spitballs. I tried rushing the Ice Queen again, like I did with the P90, but this time that was where I reset. The revolver just kinda happened. I wasn't expecting something revolutionary. It's the same slow-firing, single-shot revolver that it was 37 hours ago. I got the porticover to work first try in Zone 15, but it barely mattered since these guys don't sit still. Oh, and you'll never guess where this run ended. The Twinfire auto shotgun was... Well, actually, before I even start, full disclosure, I cheated on this run. Hear me out, though. Hear me out. I already knew that this run would go no farther than Zone 21, maximum. No shotgun has ever made it past there. And before you say anything, the pump and dump doesn't count since it's half SMG, and the Wrecker revolver also doesn't count, because while it does use shotgun ammo, it's still categorized as a pistol. Maybe there was just a tactic that I'm missing, or maybe there was some little corner where I could use a porticover. But realistically, that's not gonna happen. For all intents and purposes, this run was doomed to have a terrible, explosive end. Unless I used a second weapon specifically for Zone 21. So that's what I did. I present the Is It Possible to Beat All of Demon Slasher with Only One Gun Except for the Mini-Bosses in Zone 21 challenge. After minutes of research and consideration, I settled on a Thunderclap DMR in addition to the Twinfire, promising to use it in one zone and one zone only. And so, I did. Blasting through the zones with a shotgun felt so much better, knowing that there was an actual chance I would go farther than the other runs. And even with all the knowledge I had accumulated, new tricks were still showing up. In Zone 16, I took care of the first group of enemies from a different cover than I had been using, since it was slightly closer to their powwow and it gave me a better view of the Ice Queen. I wasn't too sure about what to do with the other group of enemies though, because remember, if you're attacking from the front half of this zone, every strategy involves getting attacked from 3 enemy groups at once, including the Spire. And would you look at that, there's some very conveniently placed cover directly in front of the Spire. And that's no issue once you take care of the guys on the left. From there it was just boom, bam, ba, bada bop, boom, pow. And finally, you make it back to Zone 21. The place where many shotgun runs had come to their close, and where some would say that their limit lies. Any other time, any other run, I would have ended my game here in some terrible explosive way. But this time, I had some explosives of my own, and they play rough. I cannot tell you just how relieving this felt. Finally getting past this impossible zone with a shotgun. Even more exhilarating was just knowing that this late into the project, I was still breaking new ground. I mean, how much farther could this run go? Could it go all the way? In Zone 25, I found some more definitive cover. There's an open area on the back left where you can hide. It's great for close-up shots with the enemies, but it's also in direct sight of the minigun boss. Zone 29 was where I was actually sure that I would die. You already know, the boss on the floating platform is the biggest and baddest problem in this zone. She needs to be taken out before anyone else. But first, I tried something new. I threw down a ported cover right at the beginning of the zone. It got torn apart, I knew that would happen, but what I didn't expect was that of all the shots firing at me, none of them were coming from the boss lady herself. This solidified my theory, and so I set the plan into motion. First, I took out the group of enemies on the left the way I used to. I knew I could move closer to the rock, but that would put me into the boss's line of fire. Hiding from the top was slower, but it was much safer. After that, I rushed up to the boss's platform, and she was too shocked to fire. She did actually shoot a couple times, and I was taking fire from the side, so I had to act quickly. I know I just said a minute ago that clearing Zone 21 felt exhilarating, but this actually felt exhilarating. Breaking the strategy I had used for ages, banking hard on a truly insane gamble and feeling it all pay off within seconds, I don't think I'm ever gonna top that feeling. And then, there's Zone 30. This area felt kinda scary at the time, but looking back, it wasn't that bad. This part boiled down to just picking off the first 2 guys once they fall, then just going for whoever's closest, moving in a circle, and using the Guardian Shield whenever it's needed. What the heck is that beast of a gun? And finally, I beat Demon Slasher with a shotgun. Mostly. The Thunderburst SMG was actually really great. I only gave this thing 1 sentence worth of yapping in the first run, because oh boy I hated this thing. Since then I have learned how to properly use this, and by that I mean I just got used to playing like a normal, not maxed out player. Remember, this was my very first run after the pistols, and I did not appreciate anything about the Thunderburst. This run went far though, and I took the time here to point out every weapon that you're able to get within the map itself, like some of the secret weapons that you saw in the shop. I've already mentioned a few of these here and there, but I wanted to put them all in one place, and if you've seen the video this far, you deserve to know. The first of the secret weapons is available in Zone 5. The Spire rifle can be purchased for 700 gold. It's a one-time purchase, and then you get unlimited copies from the lobby. All 10 of these weapons are like that actually. This little lady after Zone 5 gives you a fetch quest. You need to buy string from her and then come back to her later. Zone 6 has a Typhoon Blade that you can buy for 300 gold. Zone 13 has the Mist Gauntlets for 200 gold, as well as the Swarm Strike for 700. Zone 14 has a short parkour where you can get the flower to buy the drum gun. Ignore the fact that it looks like my skin changed here. That's a problem with your monitor. Zone 17 has a sniper locked behind a pin pad, as well as the bug blaster for 300. Zone 23 has the base boost gauntlets for 700 and the kinetic boomerang for 300. Zone 24 has a stink bow for 666 gold and gunpowder, which you can exchange for the rope you got from the old lady. Now, on another run, you can exchange the gunpowder for a primal AR, but you don't want to do that because the primal AR is a bad weapon. Under the stairs in Zone 25 is the Thunderclap DMR for 200. If you made it this far into the game, you can afford it. Buy it. The back right corner of Zone 28 has the Frostfire shotgun for 700 gold, and Zone 29 has the Lead Spitter 3000 for 500. I haven't been talking about the run itself very much, but this run was a good one. I beat the game. And that is not quite every secret weapon. I forgot to. Going back with the Ranger pistol, the Yoink shotgun is on the right side of Zone 6, opposite the Typhoon blade from earlier, for 700 gold. Finally, in Zone 9, Ares Warforged AR is behind this pin pad. The codes for both the AR and the sniper are within the map, so you don't need to go looking for a tutorial to find them or anything, because I already did that for you. Here you go. Okay, one more thing from the future. I promise this is the last one, but I forgot the kill switch revolvers. They're in Zone 19 for 700 gold, and oh hey, they fixed the hand animation. Cool. And that is every secret weapon that you can get within the map itself. Now, back to the run. This run was going great until, well, remember the boss with the stink bow in Zone 19? She does damage to your health, completely ignoring your shield, and since her lingering damage works faster than my regeneration, that can be a problem if you're not careful. Today, I was not careful. I took one too many shots, and a stink arrow took me out. I even took a snow cone, which instantly gives you 100 hit points, but I was just barely too slow. We're almost done. There's just one more weapon that we still have to retry, and it's the one that kickstarted everything. The common starter pistol. This time I was equipped with over 40 hours of knowledge, skill, cheese, tricks, everything that you should and you shouldn't do, every little place to hide, and these poor bad guys were nothing but fodder in my way. Redemption. This was my ultimate goal, beating the whole game with the common sidearm pistol. The larger challenge was ultimately failed, but I did complete the parts that were the most important to me, and I think that's enough. The challenge is over. Or is it? Everything you've seen in this video has been solo gameplay. But Demon Slasher is a multiplayer game. You and up to 2 other buddies can do a run together, and when you get hit while you're playing with others, you just get knocked and you can get revived. This opens a lot of possibilities for the challenge. You don't need any heals or items. You don't even need any upgrades. All you would really need is just a second player to stay behind cover and revive you whenever you get knocked. You could beat all of Demon Slasher with nothing, truly nothing, but just a pistol and a second player. And it's a shame that most people just won't get the chance to do that now. The game barely fills lobbies over the course of a day anymore, and if you weren't playing over the course of 1 week in September of last year, there's a good chance you never even knew this game existed. Creative games in Fortnite live and die by which games Epic chooses to give a spotlight to. That's why certain games remain extremely popular. Epic just keeps giving them the spotlight. If some games just stopped getting fed to people, they would lose 80% of their players in a month. But the games are still there. You can still play Demon Slashers right now, as well as dozens of other creative games that only got a fraction of the spotlight Demon Slasher got. The game isn't perfect, like the item and weapon selection could be improved. Why are there 2 chug splashes? A lot of the weapons in the selection feel very similar to each other, just with a slightly different sound when firing. Something like the railgun would have been great here. The explosive goo gun would have been really great here. And the airstrike would have been a much more exciting grenade option. Heck, even the mythic goldfish, pictured above the items and isn't available in the game, would have been great. This video won't get enough traction to bring back a new wave of players. Heck, if you made it this far, you're probably one of 10 people that's hearing this. But I love Demon Slashers, and I wish it could have seen more success. I really hope I've convinced you to try this game. You certainly have the knowledge to beat it multiple times over. And besides, my original challenge still hasn't been finished. So let me ask you, Is it possible to beat Demon Slasher with every weapon? I don't know. You want to help me find out?